Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Start of a new week and somewhat of a return to normalcy for us as Seahawks fans, except, well, things never really go back to normal when you lose your quarterback for an extended period of time, and that is the situation we find ourselves in now. I said that I would, starting today, be getting back to making regular Seahawks videos the way I always do, talking about the team and the next game they play and how they look and what they're doing. And that is going to happen, but it is impossible to talk about this team right now without addressing the Russell Wilson sized elephant in the room, or actually, maybe it would just be an elephant-sized elephant because, well, an elephant is bigger than Russell Wilson. But we got to talk about it some more. And part of me wanted to put the Wilson injury to the side and just talk about this team outside of that context, but I I got to talk about the different angles here because as much as Wilson may not be here next year, as much as Wilson may not want to be here even right now, as much as Wilson may have not wanted to be here months ago, and we don't know those things as much as we think we would like to know, we don't. He is part of this team for now, and he's probably going to play again for this team. So we got to talk about this. So Field Goals has this article. You can go read the whole thing if you want to. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but the gist of it is that Russell Wilson is targeting a Week 10 return, Week 10 in Green Bay against the Packers. And this article kind of goes in to describe his surgery. Apparently, it was very successful. David Chow chimed in on it as well. The short version is that it is realistic for Russell Wilson to return after a month of rehab, which would mean that he misses 3 games, then the bye week, and then he's back for Green Bay. And when I initially said that the timetable was 4 to 8 weeks, I had some people say it's 6 to 8. The 4 week thing is not realistic anymore. It's going to be at least 6 weeks. And for a while there, it looked like that was the case. But this latest information says pretty clearly that not only is Wilson possibly returning against Green Bay, it's realistic for him to return against Green Bay. And that has to cast some of this stuff in a new light, and we need to talk about it. So first, I'm going to talk about this on the surface level. I'm going to talk about it in the way that I think a lot of fans are thinking about it, because there is some merit there. The average fan looks at this and goes, our chances of winning games this season has now gone up. And beyond that, our chances of making this a successful season with a deep playoff run has gone up. And if you look at the schedule, it's not beyond the pale to say that there's some truth there. We are facing probably our easiest stretch of games in the next 3 outside of maybe the very end of the season, depending on what Arizona does with their starters in Week 18. Yeah, at Pittsburgh, home against New Orleans, home against Jacksonville, that's a pretty easy 3-gamer. And I do know that Seahawks fans, in their mind, are fantasizing about what could be, where the Wilson injury doesn't actually cost you anything because you can still win 3 games without Wilson, and then Wilson comes back before you actually play an opponent that could destroy you with Geno. You get him back for Green Bay, you get him back for the home game against Arizona, which is going to be huge, theoretically, Washington, Frisco, etc. So this news definitely got those people a little excited. The people who are thinking about it just on the level of, okay, how do we salvage this season? How do we get to the playoffs? How do we make a deep run? This news does increase the odds of that happening. And it certainly gives us a better opportunity to win in Green Bay. It gives us a much better opportunity to win at home against Arizona. So if you were assuming that Wilson was going to miss those 2 games, then those are 2 fairly significant games to have Wilson, because at least then you have a chance. And there is something to be said for that. However, I feel like a lot of Seahawks fans are getting way ahead of themselves with this, because I can see them already kind of assuming wins in Pittsburgh, against New Orleans, and against Jacksonville. And this is kind of the bigger problem I have with the Wilson injury, more than the fact that just he got injured. Wilson gets injured. He rips or tears a tendon in his finger. And you forget, because the Wilson thing is so big, you forgot that this defense is terrible. You forgot that this offense is inconsistent at best. Well, let's call the defense inconsistent too, because they've had moments of good play as well. So you've got a crazy inconsistent offense, crazy inconsistent defense. How are you going to assume we're going to go 3-0 against anybody? Pittsburgh, they're not good, but they're not terrible. They won yesterday. They didn't look great, but they looked good enough to beat a Denver team that, well, they might not be any good, but Pittsburgh was good enough to win that game. They have a good defense, and do you think they're going to be an easy team to take care of when they know going in they're game planning against Geno Smith? And we don't know if we're going to have Carson. That offensive line against TJ Watt sounds like a nightmare to me. I don't see how we can assume that. The Saints are good. I know they're flawed. I know they're inconsistent, but that's a good Saints team. They're well coached for the most part. Yes, they did lose that game to the Giants that they had no business losing. Yes, they have a turnover machine at quarterback. Yes, they have issues, but that is a good New Orleans team. And this is kind of what I'm saying. I feel like the Wilson injury has distracted a lot of fans from just how bad this team looked over the first 5 games at times. So instead of calling them bad, I'll just call them inconsistent. And here's the thing. Inconsistent can work sometimes in your favor, but here's the thing. When this team is good, when this team is at the top of at the peak performance, they're okay. They're not great. It's not that high. The highs are not that high, but the lows, when this team hits their lows, they are the worst team in the league. At their worst, they are the worst team in the league. You can't say that about other teams, I don't think. When we are at our worst on offense, we're not scoring any points in the second half against the Vikings. We're going 3 and out 5 times in a row to start the game against the Niners. We're just the worst. And on defense, at our worst, we're giving up 450 yards in 4 straight games. Only happened like 4 or 5 times in the history of the NFL before the Seahawks did it. So this team is fully capable of losing to teams like Pittsburgh and New Orleans. And I'm thinking about this revised timetable for Wilson's injury, and I'm wondering if this is even necessarily good news. It's good news if you as a fan believe that a win is always better than a loss, and the context doesn't matter, the surrounding factors don't matter. It's just, I would rather win this game than lose this game, repeated into infinity, ad infinitum, or whatever, for every game you play. Because what I kind of see happening here, and don't tell me this is an unrealistic thought, there is a very good chance that we go 1-2 with Geno. Lose to Pittsburgh, lose to New Orleans, lose to Jacksonville. Those are 2 teams. Win against Jacksonville. Let's give them the win against Jacksonville, fine. But Pittsburgh and New Orleans both have good defenses. They're going to get to prepare for Geno Smith. Our offense, when it's bad, it's bad. And with Geno, I know Geno's going to do 1 or 2 things better than Wilson does, but he's also going to do things worse. And if you thought Wilson couldn't sustain drives, struggled to hit open receivers, and did all these things that you didn't like, Geno's going to have those same problems too. I'm sorry, Geno did not turn into a Pro Bowl QB while sitting behind guys like Russell Wilson and Eli Manning. It didn't happen, I promise you. So let's assume, and this is an assumption and it might not be true, that Wilson would have gone 3-0. If we had Wilson, we still would have had all the problems, but Wilson gives us a chance because he makes big plays, because he gets things going down the field, because he can turn a busted play into something positive. He can turn negatives into positives. Let's say you win 3 games with Wilson, because that's probably what most of us as fans would have expected. Pittsburgh, I said they have a good defense, and they do, but that offense is a wreck right now, and it's injured. The Saints, yeah, they're a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get from them. Let's say you beat the Saints with Wilson. So the loss of Wilson is now reduced to you lose 2 games that you would have won. And you get him back after the bye. I'm sorry, Wilson in Green Bay for his first game back from an injury when we know he's still going to be dealing with the injury to some extent. That sounds like a recipe for a bad game. And you're probably not beating the Packers with Wilson in Lambeau. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. I have to be real here. And honestly, Arizona, yeah, we can have Wilson in that game all we want to. Watch what Arizona's offense does if we're trying to play 7 yards off every wide receiver. Watch what they do to us. You think Cliff Kingsbury isn't watching the Seahawks game tape and thinking to himself, man, what can I do if I play the Seahawks on November 21st and they're playing 8 yards off every wide receiver? What am I going to do to them? It's going to be a blast. So, unfortunately, while getting Wilson back 2 games earlier than we expected would be nominally better, I feel like you're not really gaining anything in terms of wins. So to me, if you do lose to Pittsburgh and New Orleans, which right now I kind of feel like is the most likely possibility, I just have to be real here, then the only thing that the Wilson injury changed are those 3 games, which were going to happen anyway. So now, the instead of this team being really bad, instead of this team just having a bad season and being out of it by late November, you're talking more about like a mediocre season, getting Wilson back, because here's the thing. I am not one of those fans who thinks that a win is always better than a loss and context doesn't matter. If you give me the choice between a 4-win season and an 8-win season, I'm going to say they're both pretty much the same to me. I don't really get anything about out of those 4 extra wins that still don't get you anywhere good. I just don't. Maybe if you're somebody who goes to the games and you don't want to feel like you wasted 3 hours and you want to see the team win in person a few more times, maybe then I can understand it. But I don't go to games. I watch games on TV. I watch these games analytically, and I try to think cerebrally about this team. So to me, the difference between 4 wins and 8 wins, it's nothing that I care about. So while Wilson getting back earlier would be nominally more interesting, I fear that the damage will be done in Pittsburgh and against New Orleans. I fear that we're going to lose those games with Geno, and we're going to look back on those 2 games as the reason why at the end of the season maybe we don't make the playoffs. Because at that point, going into your bye week, if you do lose those 2 games, you are looking at a 3-5 record that's going to turn into 3-7 in all likelihood. I'm sorry, guys, I'm speaking facts. At that point, maybe you can go 8-9. Maybe you can get hot at the end but still lose to the Rams and Cardinals, or some combination therein. And the problem is, at that point, nothing changes. Because it's going to be all too easy for the front office and coaching staff to just say, hey, don't blame me, we lost our quarterback. And it's all going to come back to those 2 games in Pittsburgh and against the Saints. Never mind the fact that Jordan Brooks looks like a first-round bust. LJ Collier already is a first-round bust who can't even get on the field. Rashad Penny can't get on the field. Dwayne Eskridge, no comment. Never mind the fact that Ken Norton still has a job, despite the fact that he clearly doesn't know what he's doing. Never mind Poona Ford moving to 3-tech and getting worse. Never mind DJ Reed moving to the left side and getting worse. All these things are not going to matter because, hey, Wilson got hurt. We lost to Pittsburgh. We lost to New Orleans. We would have won those games with Wilson. We would have made the playoffs. Let's run it back next year and see if we can make the playoffs then. And yeah, nothing's going to change. So Wilson coming back after 3 games instead of 5 games or 6 games, it sounds nice, but I'm not sure it's really worth that much. If it is, it's going to require a massive improvement from this team against the Steelers and Saints. Because you can say whatever you want to about aging Ben Roethlisberger and Jameis Winston, but even those guys are going to be able to move the ball on this defense the way it played through the first 5 weeks. If they come with the same weak garbage they had against the Rams in the second half on Thursday Night Football, they're going to move the ball on us, no problem. They're going to put points up on us, no problem. And Geno's not going to be able to keep up. So I don't know what I'm really rooting for or hoping for at this point. But the reality is, there is a part of me that thought that if this Wilson injury had to happen, I kind of want him to miss 2 months just so we can see how bad this really is. I want to give Carroll a maximum amount of time to show whether or not he can win games without his star quarterback, because that should be the test of a head coach, right? But now he's only going to get 3 games, and we're going to be able to point towards, theoretically, 2 losses in that 3-game stretch and say, hey, don't blame me. Blame our quarterback's finger. Blame Aaron Donald's hand. Blame whatever. Blame God. Blame the football injury gods, but don't blame me. And I don't know if this Wilson news is really all that good. We'll find out in a couple weeks, because this Steelers game and Saints game to me is going to determine whether or not you can get back in the fight. If you can't win at least one of those 2 games, you're done. And honestly, you might need to win both to really have a shot here. But I think that's enough. That's all I can say about all this. I know some people are excited. I know some people immediately, your minds went to, hey, maybe we can use this to save the season. But I think I feel like the damage is going to be done before we get to November. And Wilson coming back early I don't know, it might make this season look a little more respectable, but if you're not going to make the playoffs anyway, I don't know if that's a good thing. See you guys later. Go Hawks.